All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about specific photo merging skills that you can use with Pixlr and also with Photoshop, but we'll be using Pixlr for this project. And you can either employ these techniques in your art project if you want, if you really like what we're doing here and you think it's interesting, you can do that. Or if this is something where like you're in-person student and you're kind of finished early, this could be an extra project for you just to get a little bit more experience with Photoshop skills and photo merging, which is a lot of fun. So I'm going to go through how to do it in this video. And again, you can use it for whatever purposes you need it for. You can find the info you need on Google Classroom here under optional extra photo merging skills. And then the video should be here as well. But you will click on each of these images. And then by double tapping on your trackpad, you should be able to pull up that right click button and you should be able to download and save those images. So you don't have to follow along with this video if you don't want to. If you feel like you can just watch it and get enough from it and understand it, that's totally fine. If you want to follow along with me and do this, you absolutely can. That's when you would download those images for yourself to use, because those are the images I'm going to be using and showing you how to do this like photo merging thing. So go ahead and click on that Pixlr link. So you'll be making a new project, again, create new. And it doesn't matter what size it is for this project. Depending on what photos you want to merge, you might pick a certain size or shape, whether it's like a portrait or a landscape. It's totally up to you, again, based on the images that you want to merge together. If you have like one image that you plan on being like your main image and you want to stay to the canvas size of that image, instead of creating new, you could click this open image button, and that way it'll open up a canvas of your image that's the exact size that that image is, right? So different routes you can go about: either create your canvas and add your photos into your canvas, or create your canvas just based on that one photo. So if you have like a main photo, that might be what you want to do. I don't really care. I'm just going to click the HD one. Doesn't matter to me. And then once you're here as well, you can also like change up that canvas. So maybe I don't want this to be as much of a rectangle. Maybe I want it to be more square. I can click that crop button and I can resize my canvas that way. So if I want it to be less of a rectangle, I would do that. Easy peasy. Now, I'm going to add in all of those photos that I downloaded there. And I want to add each one as a new layer so I can work with them separately. So I'm going to go down here and add an image as a layer. So these are all my images that I plan on merging together. You might have two, you might have more than two. It really doesn't matter. I'm going to get rid of this empty layer here because I don't need this. And now I have my 4 layers. So let's work with just one at a time. I can toggle those check boxes to make them visible or invisible. And I'm just going to work with my apple and I'm going to make it the size I want. Now this is kind of the main part of my image, I would say, except I plan on having the worm like stick out of the apple. So I'm going to make sure I have enough room for that. And during this phase, I can kind of size the images the way I want them to, kind of before I start merging them in. So if I make my worm visible and I want that on top of my apple, I can size him up to determine what I need here. Looks like I need the apple to be a little smaller. So those are really the only 2 images that determine the sizes things need to be. So I'd say that's good for my sizes. So I'm going to invisible that. All right, we're going to start by creating the hole for the worm to be popping out of here. So I should probably show you where my worm is, and then I have to determine where I want my hole to be. So I'll view that as well. And my hole is going to be in front of the apple, but behind the worm. And to help myself line this up, I find it much easier to change that into like more of a transparent. So as long as you're on this Arrange tab and you've got the layer that you want to edit selected, you can change that transparency, and that will help me see through it so that I can line it up exactly where it needs to be. Now, if I just start clicking here, I'm going to be clicking the apple by accident, the worm by accident. So if I want to make sure I'm only clicking the layer that I want to be clicking, I can lock any layers that I don't want to be clicking, just to make sure that I don't mess anything up. This one's not visible, so it doesn't matter. So now I can literally only click the hole, and that way I know that that's what I'm editing. So gonna make that to be the right size. Probably about there. And now I don't need to see my worm anymore, but I still want to keep it on the apple so that I can see what's going on there. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. And then this is where I'm going to start removing the part of the hole that I don't need. So all of this background stuff, I don't need that. So make sure my hole is selected. I can bring that transparency back up if I want to see a little bit better there. And then I'm going to go to that cutout tool. And my favorite one to use is the drawing cutout. So I'll use that. When I start out, I want my brush to be big. And I don't really care for a lot of softness because I'm just trying to get rid of what I don't need. And we'll go around the edges here. As long as it's just the whole layer that is selected, that is all I will be editing right now. So it's not going to touch the apple because I don't have the apple selected. And that's why layers are really good for organizing things, because you can just work on one at a time. Okay, now I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. Make this a little bit smaller and softer. And then I can get kind of right up on here. Now maybe I want some of this like crackly texture around the hole to show up. So I can add some of that back in if I want to. I feel like that's helpful. And I'd say that's pretty good. So it kind of looks like there's a hole in my apple now. Now, you can definitely tell that this hole has a different color and a different texture than the apple underneath it. So there's a few different solutions you could do for that. You could make it more transparent and that way show some of the apple coming through it, but then you don't get as much of the hole there. So I'm going to show you this thing called blend mode. And these have all different effects, and honestly, I don't think I could tell you what every single one of them does, because all I do is I just click through it and I pick my favorite. So this just means the way that the layer overlaps the image below it will be different, so just try these out. They do different type of coloring effects, and it just makes the image on top interact with the image on the bottom a little bit more. I think that one's my favorite, the hard light. You can pick one that you like better if you want. It doesn't matter. You can still change that transparency if you feel like you need to. But honestly, I like that. That looks like a hole in an apple to me. Okay, I'm going to zoom back out. Now I'm going to add in my worm. So I'm going to line my worm up. It's locked right now, so I need to make sure that's unlocked now that I want to edit it. And I can lock the whole layer because I don't want to edit that one anymore. Line up my worm where he needs to go, so he's kind of like popping out of the hole here. And then I can zoom in and do that same thing I did before with that cutout tool. And I like the brush. I can get rid of whatever part of him shouldn't be showing. Now, sometimes you want that soft blend to get rid of things. Sometimes you want it to be a harsh line, right? Because it's right up against this hole, so it's not going to be faded next to the hole. So I can go back and add that in at less softness. Right up along the hole there if I want that harsh line. That looks good. Now it kind of looks like he's coming out of that hole there. Now, the key to really successful photo merging is being able to match colors that you have with the multiple images together. So this is a realistic apple and a cartoon worm, right? So already there's some disconnect there. But then also the worm is like a lot brighter than the rest of the apple. So I can add some edits to that. So making sure that my worm layer is selected, I can go here to adjust. And I can try and change some of those color properties to make it look like it sort of fits with the apple a little bit better. So maybe less vibrant, maybe less saturated, maybe a little warmer, and then probably a lot darker. So I'll bring that brightness down. I can also add a filter if I want to. or I can add an effect. So if I want it to look older, right? And this is something where if you really want to match all your images, you can apply an effect to every single layer, and that might help things look similar. So let's say I want to apply this effect to my worm. Let's try and also apply it to my apple and see if that helps things. So unlock it, click it, effect, and it was this one. So maybe that helps match the colors even more. So now I've got my worm coming out of a hole in my apple. The colors are pairing up a little bit. It looks like they're, merging together into one image. Now let's do something fun. I'm going to add this face to give my apple a little bit more cartoonish character, right? So I'm going to go ahead and view that, and this one's going to be on top. So move it up there. In order to line this one up, I think it's best for me to make it a little transparent. And then I'm going to lock these other layers that I'm not working on. Okay. That feels like that should work. And then I don't want anything except the face for this guy. So I'm going to go to my cutout. I'm going to start by just kind of circling the face here. I can do the rest later. And then I'll take my brush tool and just get rid of anything that doesn't look like just the face here. So brush tool, nice and soft. I'm going to take away the eyebrows too. See, that looks pretty good. Let me go ahead and bring that transparency up so I can see what I'm dealing with here. Oh, missed a little spot there. Now, same thing with this one. I can do that blend mode. So when you're on the Arrange tab, pick one that feels like it merges with the apple really well. I like that one. And I'm still going to make it a little more transparent. So now it looks like my apple has a little bit of a face. And then the final thing that I like to do with photo merging, which you can do to kind of get rid of parts of an image if you want. So if you're trying to take certain things out of like the background and make it one solid background, you can use this tool. Or if you're trying to merge images again, a little more solidly, you can use this tool. So this is the Retouch clone stamp tool where you can paint one part of an image into another part of your image. And the only way this is going to work is if they're in the same layer, because this clone stamp will only draw your source from the layer that you're currently working on. So I need to merge this face with the apple, which is fine. He doesn't need to be in front anymore, so I can bring him down here. So I had to unlock my layers in order to reposition them. So I'm going to bring him down here, and then I'm going to click this, and I'm going to click merge down, merge him with the layer below. So now this is one layer, it's no longer two, and I can zoom in a little bit here, and I can take some of this appley texture as my source. So my first click is going to be my source, and then my second click is going to be my paint where I'm painting it. So I'll take some of that appley texture and I'll bring it down into his face. And I can keep changing my source to paint from different parts of the image that I feel like are going to merge better. Yeah, that one didn't merge well at all. I'd rather have more yellow. Take some yellow up there. And I can change the transparency of it as well. So if I want less extreme paint on top of, I can just kind of fade it in. Just add some of that texture. And that can help me overall just make the face look more apple-y, right? So that's basically it. With photo merging, those are your general tools that are going to help you out a lot to get those photos looking nice all together and looking like it's kind of one photo. So whenever you're done with it, you can click save, name it whatever you want. And then mine doesn't have a background, so it's suggesting I save it as a PNG. You can save it as a JPG, it doesn't matter, as long as it works for your image. So if you don't have a background, maybe PNG is better. If you do have a background, Maybe JPEG's better. Doesn't matter. That's it. So feel free to use those techniques either in your project or as a little bit of extra work, getting used to more photo editing skills and just having fun with that. Hopefully this was helpful.